Good morning, everyone. This is Doug. We're going to be looking at a one-off topic. It's a debate that is posted at Tovia Singer's YouTube channel called Powerful Nashville Debate. Is Jesus the Jewish Messiah? Rabbi Tovia Singer versus Professor R.L. Solberg. I'm going to play for you the debate shortly. It's just a few minutes. And we want you to ask this question. Who won the point on the two different comings of Messiah? So Solberg is saying a misunderstanding in Judaism is that there had to be a Messiah who came and did everything in one visit, and therefore Jesus didn't complete anything that he supposedly is supposed to fulfill the prophecy of Messiah, and therefore he can't be the Messiah. That's one of Tovia Singer's arguments, and Solberg is saying, but wait a minute, that's not true, and even the Jewish scholarship backs him up that they had this view that you could have two different versions of the Messiah. In fact, two Messiahs is one of their solutions, but that means they understood there was a Messiah who came humbly and on a donkey, and then another Messiah who comes from the heavens. So we'll see that Solberg's argument, and then I want to test Tovia Singer's response and see if there's any weakness in it, and we'll see what that is. And at the same time, we're going to get a little closer to understanding some of the key issues about, is Isaiah 53 something that Christians and Jewish people should take into account about who Jesus is? And are you going to accept this modern glib idea that it's the people of Israel is all it's talking about, when in context it clearly is speaking about an individual, not a country as the person who's suffering and going to judgment and all these other things. So let me just show you a few little pieces of background in order to understand the clip I'm going to play. All right, so we're going to ask a question in this episode is who won the point on the two different comings of the Messiah in the Jewish rabbinic literature, that in essence, the Talmud, a work that was written in the Christian era, between 400 and 500 Christian era. It's a random collection, incidentally, of just random quotes of different rabbis talking about different topics, and about only a paragraph each. So it's a very disjointed, non-thematic document. It just looks like it's a running commentary from different, not running commentary on anything. It's just random thoughts and contributions of ideas. That's important to know, that whether Tovia Singer won this debate or not, you have to know something about the Talmud. And so the text that they were looking at was Sanhedrin 98a. That was the argument of Solberg. And then Tovia Singer gives a response. And I just want to give you a little more context. This is a Babylonian Talmud, it's also called. It was made or compiled by scholars of Mesopotamia, Babylonia, around 500 Christian era. Now, by the way, it could have stuff going way back, hundreds of years earlier, but they don't date anything, so it's hard to know. All right. And we need to know, what is the basis of the Bible saying there's two comings of the Messiah? Well, just let's look at that for a minute. So we're going to step away from the debate is about this issue in the Talmud. Do they have this understanding? But if you see it in the Bible first, then it makes sense why the Talmud would have the same understanding that's in Scripture. So let's take a look. Now, you have to know the word Messiah means anointed one, and all kings are anointed with oil at the inception of their office. So every king is a Messiah, but there was always this idea, this is the special Messiah who's going to be a king to rule the world, and would be an everlasting kingdom. And this was the one prophesied in Daniel. So let's just take a look at Zechariah 9:9. The coming king. Rejoice greatly, O daughter of Zion. Shout, O daughter of Jerusalem. Behold, your king is coming to you. He is just and having salvation, lowly and riding on a donkey, a colt, the foal of a donkey. All right. So that's the king coming, who is what? Poor, humble, no pomp and circumstance, not in the clouds of heaven. And what dovetails into that is the suffering servant. Okay, so the suffering servant doesn't say it's the Messiah. So that's another thing that you'll see the Jewish scholars in the Talmud will take the references in Isaiah 53 and apply it to the Messiah. And so this is a question that sometimes Tovia Singer tries to suggest, there's nothing about these references in Isaiah of the suffering servant to a Messiah, and so these are being blown out of proportion. But it actually was the same view of Talmudic scholars, and that's part of the Solberg presentation. So let's just listen to this. Isaiah 53:4. Surely he has borne our griefs and carried our sorrows, yet we esteemed him stricken, smitten by God, and afflicted. Okay? So those two passages are viewed as related to the first coming of Christ by Solberg. And here is what Solberg would say is the second coming of Christ. And actually what this is an ascension from earth by one who looks like a human being. He goes up to heaven and he meets the Ancient of Days. And this Ancient of Days is going to say, I'm going to give you the kingdoms of the world. So let's take a listen to this. Daniel chapter 7, verse 13 to 14. NKJV, by the way, NKJV means it is the Ben Chayim text of 1525 that is primarily being relied upon and no longer what the KJV did itself. The NKJV promises it did not look at Septuagint, did not look at Vulgate, and is strictly going by the Jewish Masoretic text of 1525, essentially. Okay, now let's listen. I was watching in the night visions, and behold, one like the Son of Man, coming with the clouds of heaven. He came to the Ancient of Days, and they brought him near before him. Then to him was given dominion and glory and a kingdom, that all peoples, nations, and languages should serve him. His dominion is an everlasting dominion, which shall not pass away, and his kingdom, the one which shall not be destroyed. Okay, so that is the coming of a king, an anointed one, who would be what? A universal, eternal ruler. And to do this, he has to go up to heaven to meet the Ancient of Days, and then he's sent back down to then take the earth for all of the earth. And basically, he's going to serve as a king on behalf of God, Yahweh. This is one of the passages that Solberg is relying upon. Sanhedrin 98a. Rabbi Alexandri says, Rabbi Yehoshua ben Levi raises a contradiction between the two depictions of the coming of the Messiah. It is written, quote, there came with the clouds of heaven one like unto a son of man, and there was given him dominion and glory and a kingdom. His dominion is an everlasting kingdom. Daniel 7, verses 13 to 14. And it is written, behold, your king will come to you. He is just and victorious, lowly, and riding upon a donkey and upon a colt, the foal of a donkey. Zechariah 9, verse 9. Rabbi Alexandri explains, if the Jewish people merit the redemption, the Messiah will come in a miraculous manner with the clouds of heaven. If they do not merit redemption, the Messiah will come lowly and riding it upon a donkey. Now, that's not how the Bible works. If it says it's going to happen each way, they're not alternatives. There'll be both are going to have to happen. And if they're one person, they have to be the same person. And somehow that person has to die and get resurrected. And then he can complete the second half later. Anyway, so let's go on. And he also cites, Solberg does, Midrash Conan from the 11th century. And this reads, according to the text I found, Messiah, son of David, who loves Jerusalem, Elijah takes the Messiah by the head, and says, you must bear the sufferings and wounds by which the Almighty chastises you for Israel's sins. And so it is written, he was wounded for our transgressions, bruised for our iniquities. Midrash Conan, 11th century. That clearly would be somebody saying Jesus' atonement paid for sins. And by the way, there's a long back text on it, and I found a book called by Raphael Pate. You can get this on Kindle for $14, have it immediately, and it's the Messiah text, and it's very extensive. In other words, it doesn't it doesn't worry about paper. It's just going to give it all to you, because some critics were attacking a book from the 1800s that gave more truncated quotes. These guys don't hold back. Mr. Patai doesn't hold back anything. It just gives you the whole context. And here's the book. You can buy it for $14.74. And here it is. So I'm going to get into it later. So I'm going to begin the playing the clips of Solberg and Tovia Singer, and then we'll come back and do a little more analysis.
The other thing about this is you say, where does it say our Messiah would die? Well, I see that in Isaiah 53, right? He'll be cut off from the land of the living and make his death with the wicked. Now, yes, that one Talmud, this is mine, isn't it? Quote that we read may have some additional context, but there's a lot more out there. For example, the Targum on Isaiah 53. What does the Targum for Isaiah 53 say about the servant in that chapter? Avdi Mashiach, my servant, the Messiah. Okay. Now, I'm not quoting extra biblical rabbinic sources because they're an authority in my life, because they're not. And it sounds like they're not an authority in his life either, but they are proof that the Christian interpretation of these things is very much in line with Jewish thinking. It's not like some brand new thing that we invented. Zechariah, right? He tells us of a coming king to reign over all the earth. Now, in chapter 9, it shows the king Messiah coming humble and riding on a donkey. Zechariah 14, the king is a conqueror who comes in wrath to judge the enemies of Israel, right? Micah 5 says that the Messiah will be born in the city of David. But Daniel 7 says he's coming on the clouds of heaven. So which is it? Well, in the Talmud, the rabbis discussed this very question. Some decided there must be two messiahs. There's Mashiach ben Yosef, who would come humbly on a donkey and suffer, and then there was Mashiach ben David, who would come as a conquering king. Right? So that's one theory, but in Sanhedrin 98b, Rabbi Alexandri tells a different story. He says, quote, "If the people of Israel will be righteous, the Messiah will come in the clouds of heaven. If we will not be righteous, he will come as a poor man riding on a donkey." So there's ongoing debate in Jewish circles about how to interpret these prophecies. And check this out. Midrash Conan says that Mashiach ben David is bearing wounds and suffering for Israel as recorded in Isaiah 53:5. It's this Messiah, it says this, quote, "Messiah, son of David, who loveth Jerusalem, Elijah takes him by his head, lays him down in his bosom, and holds him, saying, Bear thou the sufferings and wounds wherewith the Almighty doth chastise thee for Israel's sins. And so it is written, He was wounded for our transgression, bruised for our iniquities," Isaiah 53:5, "until the time that the end should come." So I'm not claiming that this particular Mishnah quote or Midrash quote or any of the other quotes I'll probably be sharing tonight indicate that Jewish thinkers necessarily considered Jesus the Messiah, but I am saying that, unlike Rabbi Singer, they at least saw him in Isaiah 53.
Professor Solberg this evening quoted the tractate Sanhedrin, the Talmud. It talks about the Messiah suffering. I want to share this with you because I have a feeling this is going to come up a lot here this evening. If you're reading Isaiah 53, it is axiomatic that the prophet presumed that you have already read Isaiah 52, 51, and 50, going all the way back. If you're reading the Talmud and Tractate Sanhedrin 98, it's just axiomatic that you've read Sanhedrin page 97. So it is true that if you go online and you get a quote from Sanhedrin 98, then the passage can be taken out of context. I want to just concede that point here this evening, that if you can rip a passage, whether it's from the Bible, from the Talmud, out of context, and then breed an idea that's completely thoroughly unbiblical or is incompatible with the teachings of the Talmud. In Tractate Sanhedrin, but 97, just the page before, the Talmud tells us that it's not just the Messiah, but it's all the suffering of the Jewish people who have like leprous suffering, who are sitting by the gates of Rome. All of them have bandages on them. Rabbi Yehoshua ben Levi, a great Tanak, a contributing author to the Mishnah, beholds this. And it is only the Messiah who is distinct from other suffering Jews in that his bandages are removed one at a time. So it is true, I can see this, that if you go to Sanhedrin 98 and you have not gone through 97, wow, person could be in a lot of trouble.
All right, so now I'm going to test Tovia Singer's claim that this passage was quoted by Solberg out of context so that it would be misleading to not tell you what the original context was. And if you don't give that, the people listening to his argument should know that he's been deceptive. And that's why he says, somebody who does something like this is going to be in trouble, meaning morally with God. That's a serious charge he was making, right? So here's the quote. Rabbi Alexandri, Rabbi Yehoshua ben Levi raises a contradiction between the two depictions. One is clouds of heavens of the Messiah, and the other is lowly riding upon a donkey. And by the way, the completely legitimate argument that Jewish people had this concept that there would be two messiahs. And if there's two messiahs, that tells you there could be two different comings of the same Messiah. It doesn't have to be two people. It could be the same person coming twice, particularly if one person dies and resurrects. That could be an explanation of how it would be done by God. So if we go down now, we're going to go down 1, King Shapur. This is not it. We're going to go down 2. This is the second one. Still not it. We're going to go down 3, and this is it. It's 3 distinct paragraphs down, and these other 2 in between have no logical connection. I just want to show you how they're totally illogically connected. They're just simply random musings. King Shapur of Persia said to Shmuel mockingly, "You say that he, Messiah, will come on a donkey. I will send him with a riding horse that I have." Shmuel said to him, "Do you have a horse with 1,000 colors, like the donkey of the Messiah? Certainly his donkey would be miraculous." That has no, I mean, they're just still talking about the donkey, but it's simply not a big deal. It's not logical to have to say, oh, by the way, there's somebody talking about the donkey with colors. So that's 2 down. Now we're going to get to 3 down. And the next one's going to be the right one. Okay, so let's just see what this one's about. Rabbi Yehoshua ben Levi found Elijah, the prophet, who was standing at the entrance of the burial cave of Rabbi Shimon ben Yohei. Rabbi Yehoshua ben Levi said to him, "Will I be privileged to come to the world to come?" Elijah said to him, "If this master, the Holy One, blessed he be, will wish it so." Okay, again, nothing relevant. Is there anything misleading taking this quote that Solberg did out of this context? Now we're down 3. Now we'll see the passage he relied upon. Rabbi Yehoshua had said to Elijah, "When will the Messiah come?" Elijah said, "Go ask him." Rabbi Yehoshua ben Levi asked, "And where he sitting?" Elijah said to him, "At the entrance of the city of Rome." Rabbi Yehoshua ben Levi asked him, "And what is his identifying sign?" "He sits among the poor who suffer from illnesses, and all of them untie their bandages and tie them all at once. But the Messiah unties one bandage and ties one at a time. He says, 'Perhaps I will be needed to serve to bring about the redemption. Therefore, I will never tie more than one bandage so that I will not be delayed.'" Ladies and gentlemen, it sounded so sensitive and so endearing when Tovia Singer said it, but when you really read it, it's just somebody musing. Again, really kind of almost silly, and I think these are meant in jest because so he's going to not put on. I mean, in good-natured jesting. I don't mean making fun of anything about God or Jesus or the context of the passage. It's just simply making amusing, like, oh well, he won't have all the bandages being taken off all at once. He's going to do one at a time, just in case he has to race out and do something to redeem people. Okay, so just I think musings. But again, what does this have to do with this context? Has to be told and explained. If I tell you what it says about the 2 messiahs, the donkey and the cloud of heavens, what does that have to do with this passage? That if I don't tell you what this passage talks about bandages, I'm somehow misleading you, because otherwise, don't raise this, Mr. Singer. This is irrelevant, and you're just simply scurrilously throwing dirt and shade over somebody who didn't do anything wrong. Mr. Solberg didn't say anything wrong. He didn't take anything out of context, and you made it sound like he did. You made a big deal. You made it look like he did something seriously wrong. Somebody could be in trouble for doing that. The answer is no. Really, this is not the right way to argue the case. And this is a problem with debates that are done orally. You may have forgotten that these contexts are not right next to each other. They're separated by 3 paragraphs. You might have forgotten that the Talmud is not a thematic document. It doesn't keep up a theme. It doesn't have a consistent story. So there's nothing out of context ever. Every paragraph stands by itself. They're completely different. Maybe you haven't read the Talmud lately, and maybe that was the reason this happened. So I'm just going to say you forgot. It's not a thematic document. It doesn't have a theme. It doesn't have a consistent story that it's telling. It's just simply musings on different topics within a general contour. So that's the truth here. So the answer to this video question is no. Mr. Singer did not give a good argument in reply to this argument. And the argument still stands that Solberg is right, that the Jewish concept of the 2 messiahs is right here in this quote. He's going to come on clouds of heaven, one like unto a son of man. And then that's Daniel 7:13 to 14. And then it's written, "Behold, your king will come to you, and he is just and victorious, lowly, and riding upon a donkey and upon a colt, the foal of a donkey." Zechariah 9:9. So one is humble and basically like a nobody kind of king, and the other is coming on clouds of glory. So instead of being 2 messiahs, it can be 1. That's a possibility. And that's all Solberg was trying to say. It's just simply conceptually acceptable to Jewish people that these are so different descriptions of the Messiah, that the Jewish people actually separated them into two Messiahs. And that's where you get also the Ben Joseph and the Ben David story about there's one Messiah will be Ben Joseph, and another will be called Ben David. That would be the Messiah, son of Joseph in the Davidic line. All right, so on this debate point, and there were many debate points, and I'm not addressing all of them. I just was addressing this one, and I think this is very important for me personally because I don't know the Talmud very well, and here I have Solberg giving me education. I want to learn more, and I would expect that Tovia Singer would be able to refute him if it was not true, and he did know the context. He even had read 3 paragraphs away from it, and he made this argument that didn't refute at all what Solberg said, and actually shows that you have to address when Mr. Singer says something is out of context. You have to wonder and ask yourself, does he go on and then tell you what the context actually says that would undermine taking the other quote and telling you that there are these two messiahs, the cloud of glory Messiah and the donkey Messiah? Why is this context important? That was never explained in Mr. Singer's rebuttal. He just simply said, you're in trouble if you do that. This is it made it sound like a moral failure to take this quote that Solberg did out of the Sanhedrin 98a and not mention this other context that is, it turns out, I showed you, exposed it. It's totally unconnected. It's disconnected and with any logic at all. These are not, again, none of these paragraphs are connected logically with each other, except the theme is the Messiah and all kinds of speculations about who he is and what he is and what passages could apply. All right. Anyway, I hope that puts to rest that whole idea that Solberg was wrong. He's completely right. The Jewish people did have a concept of two messiahs, and that supports the idea that the Bible did support. They're so disparately different that it doesn't matter that the lowly donkey Messiah didn't accomplish all the things that the cloud of glory Messiah did, because they're two different experiences by the same person. One is before he dies and resurrects, and the other is after he resurrects and he's in heaven. Now he's going to come back down from heaven, and that's how you get this resolution of this issue. And all of this is consistent with Jewish thinking. Elijah was taken away in a whirlwind. He's up in heaven. He can come back down from heaven, right? So Elijah could be a messianic figure if he came on clouds of glory. You see what I'm saying? So you could say, okay, well, if I have enough proof that this is a miraculous figure, if I had enough evidence, and he wasn't an apostate, you just assume Jesus isn't really an apostate, as he's depicted by Christianity. He's not doing away with the law. He, in fact, says the law will not go away. The heavens and earth go away before the law will ever go away. I mean, you repair some of the reputation he has, and you get to understand who he really is, and you don't exaggerate who he is. Then you can take a more serious look at Jesus and realize not always is Rabbi Tovia Singer correct in his critiques of people like Mr. Solberg. All right, God bless. Take care, everybody. Ciao. Bye.